I had the world's worst problems trying to keep, particularly the second one, in tune. Not really sure why that would be. I tried out, changed machine heads, changed all sorts of stuff.
Not the strings, is it?
No, it was definitely not the strings. No, it might have been the idiot hitting the strings, but it wasn't the strings.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, Jason. After all these years, hello.
We've missed each other so many times over the years.
Absolutely.
But hopefully, you know, later this year, if things get back to some kind of normality, then you'll be out and about. Really. Well, what do you think the chances are? Are you?
Do you know? Well, I mean, obviously, I know more than anybody else, but it certainly seems like the vaccine, certainly here, is being rolled out pretty sharpish. You know, it's well, actually one of the few upsides of getting older is you finally falling into a category that you might get vaccinated earlier. You know, it's just like
yeah. I saw that one the other day. I thought, oh, I'm in category 4 or something now.
Yeah, me too.
Way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, like you say, it's being rolled out here now quickly as well. So I think they've got 3 different vaccines that the government are buying, and obviously the care homes and that the most vulnerable groups are being sorted out first. So
right,
it is.
Sounds like it's the same pattern everywhere. Yeah. Sounds like it's the same pattern everywhere, which is great.
So have you been back to Ireland at all, or not? Not, I guess, since before March.
No. I mean, once everything happened last March, you know, basically we managed to get like 3 dates into a UK tour, and there still wasn't sort of like a blanket ban or anything, and there was no real instruction from the powers that be. So you know, we didn't even know what was going on from one day to the next. So we played in Birmingham, and I think that we were supposed to play in Norwich next, but that show got pulled because it was in a university, and the university acted quicker than the government.
Right.
So we all scooted up to Newcastle, which was supposed to be the next show, but that was on the Monday, I think, and the show wasn't until the Friday. So you know, we're sat in a hotel room, like the band and the crew, for like 3-4 days, just kicking our heels, really. And it was at the time when there seemed to be a press conference every day, and nobody really knew what the heck was going on. No. But it was becoming more apparent as time went on that, you know, nothing was going to happen. So we basically made the judgment call ourselves, and went, you know, this is silly. It's like, you know, we're because again, half the band live over here in America, and there was all sorts of, you know, as is always the way with these things, there was a lot of sort of rumor and counter rumor and stuff, and it was like, well, if you don't get on a plane now, you're not going to get on a plane for the next 3 months. So I thought, I can't afford to sit in a hotel in Newcastle for 3 months, you know.
Exactly.
So basically, you know, since last March, my entire world has been these 4 walls in the local supermarket, you know.
Right. Yeah, because you're in Chicago, aren't you? So that's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it as windy as they say? Windy City.
Yeah, I mean that actually it can be, because we're right on a lake. But
that's Lake Superior, is it the big one, isn't it? On
Michigan, it's Michigan.
Oh, Michigan,
Lake Michigan. Yeah, it's but yeah, that nickname actually came about from I think the late 19th century, when they were bidding to hold the World's Fair here. And there was a meeting of all sort of politicians from all over the country, I think in New York.
So it wasn't Donovan then?
No, not as far as I know. No, I don't think. I know Don's been around a while, but I don't think he's been around since the late 19th century. But yeah, basically, they were lobbying so hard and never shut up that they were referred to as the delegates from the Windy City, because they were full of hot air, and that's actually where the nickname came from.
Oh, okay. So not for that reason, but
although, yeah, like I said, it's applicable because it can get bloody breezy here. You know?
Yeah. So. I think there's a good music shop that we deal with there. Is it Chicago Music Exchange, or did they close?
Yeah, they've actually, just a couple of years back, they moved to bigger premises. They literally used to be just around the corner from me, and the buggers moved, so it's a bit of a drive now. But
you spend a lot of time.
Actually, I don't. I mean, I guess well, it's probably different for you because you're dealing with the stores a lot, but I kind of got over the years have fallen into the practice of, I know lots of people in bands collect guitars and they particularly sort of, antique guitars, vintage guitars and stuff.
Yeah.
I've fallen into the other camp where they've become hammers and screwdrivers, as far as I'm
tools of
concerned.
the trade. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. Well, so
it's like,
plus that's the punk ethos, really, isn't it? I mean,
I suppose it might be. Yes, I certainly play like they're hammers and screwdrivers so often. But
it's all about the songs.
Yeah, well, to be honest, for me, it's like people again were sort of such and such, it's gorgeous guitars, great tone and all that. And yeah, obviously that's very, very important. But for me, the main thing was getting the damn thing to stay in tune for a set. I mean, that was my main concern. So whenever manufacturers started bringing in like lock-in bridge nuts and all sorts of stuff that would actually hold the thing, this is not going anywhere now.
You were all over that.
That to me was that was a godsend as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
And then they went and put Floyd Rose tremolos on them. It's like, oh, you're kidding now, aren't you? It's never going to stay in tune. So lock that damn thing down.
That's a bit complicated. So when you were growing up, you were in Belfast, right?
That's right, yeah.
So was that music shop there that is still there, Matchett's?
Oh, there were a bunch. I mean, yeah, Matchett's was when we were growing up. It was kind of it wasn't really the posh music shop. It was more sort of not necessarily classical
mums and dads
instruments. Yeah, it was a bit. It was the sort of thing. Yeah, if you said you wanted a guitar, that was the sort of place your dad might take you. You're like, no, I want to go to the place around a corner. You brought me in here, and they've got all these lovely nylon stringed, classical guitars.
Not what you were looking for.
Yeah, I want something that goes bang. Something that goes bang. Yeah, there were a lot. I mean, the one I bought my first guitar from was called Marcus's.
Marcus Music. Yeah. They were around
Smithfield.
A few years ago. They closed, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the one we used the most when the band started working was Baird's, Harry Baird's shop.
Sound Systems.
Yeah. And the main reason for that was Harry was slightly out of the city centre, and he was actually still a working musician. I mean, all the others had sort of shop vibes to them. Yeah. Harry's was a place that you could go and hang out. I mean, his dad used to work. Pop used to work behind the counter. And you could actually go and sort of hang out and have it. Maybe you might get a cup of tea occasionally, but but you could go and hang out. And it was a they would do you things like sort of we would hire like small vocal PAs from them for shows and stuff. But they would always do things like sort of take it and pay us when you've been
try it out
paid yourselves and stuff. And that was great if you were hiring a PA. So it's like if we had a show on the Friday or Saturday. Particularly Saturday, because then you had to make a special arrangement. Usually with Pop, it was never overly happy to come and open up on a Sunday afternoon so you could drop this thing
Take it back. Yeah.
Quite knows why. I never really understood why you had to go on a Sunday afternoon, because they weren't open. So why didn't? It's not like he was renting it out again on a Sunday night. Why didn't he just wait on Monday, mate? But they were great. I mean, on a much smaller scale, I've heard Pete Townsend say, he used to run into shops on Denmark Street and sort of go, taking a guitar, play you Friday. We used to be able to do that with Harry's. You'd sort of go, can you sling us in a couple of leads and stuff, and we'll sort you out on Friday or whatever. And he was always really good like that. And I think because he was still a working musician, he actually... And the staff there, all the guys that worked there, were always really
your needs.
They were enthusiastic as well, I mean, in a lot of the stores, you'd go in and it'd be like sort of, you couldn't even try out a guitar. Like, are you going to buy that? I was like, well, obviously I'm not going to buy it. I'm still in my school uniform and it's a Gibson Les Paul. I mean, I just want to play it. Whereas you'd go into Harry's and it'd be like, yeah, just don't break it. You sit in the corner. Just don't break it.
Yeah. Well, that was the spirit, I guess, of the times as well. And it was a great era for music, wasn't it? It was an exciting time that you broke into the scene, because obviously now it's not quite like that.
Well, I mean, there are a number of reasons, obviously. I mean, obviously the pandemic being the most obvious one. But yes, it was really exciting. And I mean, looking back on it, the thing that sort of really amazed me, and amazes me now, even looking back on it, was just the sudden explosion of bands that there were everywhere. I mean, there was obviously And there was obviously a lot of raw talent out there that wasn't being given, wasn't being given the oxygen that it probably needed.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that was to do. I mean, again, sort of, I read an interview with Joe Strummer from years back, and he said, that basically punk had to happen from, even if just from the point of view of to get that talent out there, because a lot of young kids might have wanted to be in bands, but they'd listen to people like Yes or whatever, who were technically astonishing. And I think, there's no way I'm going to be anything like that level for who knows how many years. And by that stage, by the time you get that proficient, you've probably had a lot of the enthusiasm knocked out of you. Again, the thing that amazed me was the sheer songwriting talent that was out there. Even bands who made one single, 9 times out of 10, that was a great single. And there was a great pop sensibility as well that that had been overlooked obviously for years in pursuit of being flash or whatever. King Arthur on Ice. No disrespect to Rick Wakeman, but really. That's not really going to fly down your local youth club,
No.
Although I haven't said that, you can usually go on your ear today. Yeah, right. And there was a great pops, and it was evident right throughout the country, and that was fantastic. And there was rivalry. I guess there's always going to be rivalry.
I guess you had the Undertones. They were in.
We weren't actually aware of them because they were up the road. They were like sort of in Derry, which is quite a ways away. But yeah, there were other bands in Belfast. Rudy and the Outcasts were the most notable, and they, I think they'd both formed before we did. There was an amount of rivalry, but it was always reasonably friendly rivalry.
So who were you looking to, like, maybe in New York around that time with the CBGB's vibe, bands like Television and Patti Smith, and were you into that stuff, or was that on the radar?
Ali was a much bigger fan of the New York stuff than I was, although I was a big Ramones fan. I mean, again, it was the pop music thing, the Ramones were basically the Beach Boys with loud guitars. And Blondie I found attractive, and I don't mean that in that way. I mean, actually,
you mean the chord progressions are attractive,
right? Yeah, I mean, I actually really liked the whole sort of 60s pop vibe that they had as well. That attracted me. Again, Television, I just found the actual sound a bit sterile, a bit cold.
Yeah, it was a bit bleak, wasn't it? But it
was a bit brittle as well. The actual guitar sound and stuff. I've always been a big sort of tone has always been very, very important to me. And I'm about to commit the ultimate sacrilege here for a guitar player and say, because of that, I never liked Jimi Hendrix. I just could not get away with the guitar tone. I mean, I appreciated the technical ability, and I appreciated the groundbreaking of it and all that. But to actually sit down and listen to it for pleasure, I'm like, oh, man, that guitar tone just cuts right through me. I just,
I love Sid Barrett, and nobody's going to say he was a great guitar player, but I mean, I love the art of Sid Barrett, the sort of, what do they call it? Psychedelic noodling. But it's all got its place, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It all part of the jigsaw.
Gallagher when I was probably about 12, and it wasn't even, although I mean it was what he was playing was actually exciting, but it was the sound of the guitar that really made me go, what is that, and the same with a band like Dr. Feelgood. The first time I heard Wilco Johnson, it was another one of those, what is that? And secondly, how the hell is he doing that? It's like,
very
and again,
angular.
Sort of, right, but again, technically, Wilco isn't the world's greatest guitar player. But that sound and that technique were unique, and that to me sort of sets him. That's what makes him a great guitar player.
Yeah.
Although again, technically, he's no Steve Vai, and he surely wouldn't want to be.
No, exactly. Well, it's not a science, really, is it? It is an art form, playing the guitar. So
right.
I think there's a lot of people that learn all these scales and stuff, but I like the more sort of arty side of it. I think like you're saying with Wilco Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always it's a long held ambition of mine that one day I'll record a one note guitar solo, but it's got to be the right note.
Pete Shelley had two.
Yeah, right. So and there've been a couple of people that have nearly gotten there.
Neil Young.
Yeah, yeah, Neil Young. Actually, again, probably one of my favourites is from the first Montrose record, and I think it's is it Bad Motor Scooter, where it starts out and he just plays the one note as it comes out of this little breakdown thing. And it takes off again, and he plays one note, but it's the right note.
The right
and
note.
He plays it, and I'm like, "Go on, son, you're going to do it." And then he went off in a noodle, and it's like, "Damn it, you were so close! Damn it, you were so close!"
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think no, it's interesting. I mean, we're lucky. We make a product that's used by a lot of famous people, and just fortunate to do a job really where. I enjoy all aspects of it, and it's great to talk to you and hear what's going on. I've got a couple of questions here, Jake, if that's okay.
Fire away. Fire away.
Well, what have we've spoken about this. What have you been up to in the past year? So I guess you've been writing. You've probably been writing stuff.
Yeah, we have. I mean, it's one of those things. Again, I'm not the world's most prolific writer, but. So generally, if I do write something, it kind of sticks in my memory, and I'll be back and forth with the band a lot. And I mean, anytime we get together, normally I tend to use the transatlantic plane service a bit like a bus, so I'm back and forth a lot during the year. So generally, we'll rehearse before everything. Actually, I mean, there's very rarely that we've got a short enough gap that we're like, okay, well, we can just let's not bother rehearsing. I'll just meet you at the airport or whatever.
Yeah.
So and of course it's a short enough gap, but it's also it is. I'm explaining this badly, but it is short enough that we can pretty much remember what we've just done. So we'll fly through that quickly, and then it's like, well, we've got the rest of the afternoon. I've got this idea, and so that's the closest we get to being the sort of the generic.
Do you write on your own as opposed to with the band mainly?
Yeah.
So you're coming
I do.
Structure and
right. I mean, generally, I'll record it at home. I've got like a little Tascam thing. I never got into Pro Tools. I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to
still an analog vibe.
No, it is a digital toy, but it's got physical like buttons and knobs. Okay. I like being able to get my hands on it. It's like I understand theaters if I push them with my fingers. It's like not sort of, oh, hang on, I move the mouse and that turns it up. No, I can't be doing that. So yeah, I mean, I can make up a finished it to a large degree product to send to them.
Yeah.
And then we'll obviously, I'm not going to play drums the same way Steve does. It's a machine to start with, but I'm certainly not going to play bass the way Ali does. So it's all that stuff's pretty rudimentary.
Yeah.
So apart from my own part, it's all okay. This is where I want it to go. What do you think?
See where it gets taken. Yeah.
Right. But that kind of puts markers in my mind as to what I've written, because I'm sitting at home and I don't have that. I was actually just talking to my wife the other night, and it was somebody had written to us and said, how far along are you in writing the next album? And I said, well, we've got about 6 or 7, and and she said, well, you've been writing since you got back. And I said, no, not really. She went, you've written at least 3. I went, have I? Oh, yeah, you're probably right, actually. And I'd actually forgotten I'd written the damn songs. So it's like, luckily, they were all still on the machine. So I went back, oh, that's not bad. Oh, yeah, okay.
You got something to reference back to, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, normally there's those markers, so I'm very, very aware of what I've done. But just sort of putting them on a machine and moving on to the next one, I've kind of lost track a bit.
Yeah. Do you tend to write on electric or acoustic? Do you have a? That's
interesting as well. Yeah, I mean, I tend to play more acoustic sitting in the house. Again, we're going back to the tone thing.
Yeah.
I don't like playing guitar through headphones. So. Again, we live in an apartment building. Luckily, it's pretty well soundproofed. And I would have generally only worked between like 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon when I knew all my neighbours were out at work. Yeah. Of course, that hasn't been the case this year. So everybody's trying to work from home, and the last thing they need is either me trying various chord progressions out and getting nowhere, or worse again, actually having gotten somewhere and then trying to work out a drum pattern on a drum machine. It just sounds like somebody building a shed next door or something. So yeah, that is interesting because I tend to play them more acoustically at home. And when you do come up with an idea and you think, oh, that's worth following, your brain, because of what you got in your hands, your brain tends to go down that path. So you start writing almost a folk song and you think, well, hang on, that's not going to work for the band. What does it sound like on an electric guitar? And there's a huge difference. I mean, they're both. It's almost like it is playing a different instrument, but it's a totally different mindset and it's a totally different approach to playing. So yeah, I mean, I tend to. I would prefer to write on an electric just simply because that's going to get me. That's one step closer to where I want to be.
Yeah, I
but a lot of the times, the idea comes to me and it's a case of, all right, hang that one up, grab that one, and see what it sounds like on that.
Yeah, cool. And let's have a look. So we've spoken a little bit about your influences. What about 60s influences or earlier? Right. You're talking about the Ramones. I mean, I guess the Beatles, without being too cheesy.
Actually, no, I never really liked the Beatles. I mean, simply, I mean, again, it's the Hendrix thing. But this isn't tone. This is just familiarity breeding contempt. Because I was born in 1958.
The Beatles as well.
Yeah, well, it's simply because they were never off the bloody radio. When I was growing up.
No.
And it was, so it was just a case of, I mean, at first you were like sort of, oh, wow, that's a really good song. That's a really good song. Really good. But, sort of, if you heard it one more damn time, it was just going to drive me nuts. And also, the friends I was hanging out with were all like 2 or 3 years older than me. It was just one of those weird generational groups where I grew up. So as a consequence of which, I mean, I bought a lot of records on Motown. I was a big Motown fan when I was a young kid. But yeah, I mean, I would watch sort of Top of the Pops and I'd listen to the radio and stuff. And but because my friends were that little bit older, they were buying records that would have been slightly advanced for a 12-year-old, which is probably why I sat down and watched the Rory Gallagher thing. I mean, the first album I actually bought with my own money was Led Zeppelin 2, and I bought that the week it came out. So again, I was 12, but my pals were all listening to things like that and the Black Sabbaths and so the very early sort of heavy metal bands.
Right. Okay.
Who were all just called underground then. There was nobody
they weren't on the radio.
Heavy metal. Oh, they definitely weren't on the radio. Yeah, I mean, so that was that was what I was listening to in 1970. But yeah, before that, it would have been mainly sort of most of the records were Motown records, or just anything that. It's interesting to me now looking back on the singles I bought then, because again I didn't have the money to buy an album, so the singles I bought. That again, just even to this day, how many of them stand up as great pop records, and that I think that's that's something that's informed and still informs sort of my songwriting to this day. It's like, even though I was attracted to the drama, if you like, of punk rock and the sort of the immediacy of it, I still wanted to make sure that there was a melody in there, even though I might have been barking like a wounded dog on the early records. I still wanted to make sure that there was a melody in there somewhere.
People could hum a tune. You could actually
right. And I would agonize over things like middle eights, which I don't think a lot of early punk writers did. But again, it's just, and it wasn't even me being technical. It was just because I'd listened to so many of those pop records.
There was a structure to it, wasn't there?
That's got to be there. That there has to be. There's that bit. There's that bit where they always sing a different tune. I didn't know the technical term, but that's got to be in there.
Well, that was part of the formula, wasn't it? That probably went back to like Rodgers and Hammerstein and
exactly
Cole Porter and way back.
Yeah, it's all Tin Pan Alley stuff. Yeah,
Middle Eight, or a bridge.
Yeah,
or,
Yeah.
But have you ever been to any of the NAMM shows in LA? I wouldn't think it's.
I haven't actually. I've only ever been there when one was happening, and we were actually in the middle of recording at the time. Okay. So I mean, our manager came in and he had passes, and he was like, any of you guys want to go? I think our drummer went, because literally, he'd done his bit and was sort of hanging around the studio, sort of reading the newspaper and bored out his brain. So it's like, yes, I'll go, and he went, and yeah, he came back raving about it. He had a great time, but no, we were too busy working. If
things return to normal at some point, Jake, then we do them every year about this time, third week of January, couple of weeks time. So we'll certainly see if you're around next year. If you'd fancy coming over, might be quite good.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I remember that because this would have been 6 years ago, 2014, 7 years ago, really.
Yeah.
When we were recording there, and it was actually one of the worst winters in living memory here in Chicago. And I'm in Los Angeles, and it was glorious. And so, you phone home every day just to check how things are. The sort of pipes haven't burst or anything crazy like that. And again, talking to the wife, and she was like, sort of, God, it's terrible here. So I think I'll remember this phrase to the day I die. She said, "It's so cold here. The zoo have taken the polar bears in." She said,
you never invited her to LA.
No, and anyway, she's like, "So what's it like there?" And I'm I'm literally sat on the veranda with a cold beer, going, "Oh, yeah, you wouldn't like it. It's terrible here as well." Yeah, he would.
Yeah. Yeah. What do they call California? The state of mind.
Yeah. Well, they've been really badly hit.
That's bad. It's been hit badly, isn't it? Yeah, because.
Yeah. Between that and the wildfires, they haven't had any fun. There's no fun to be had there at the minute.
No fun, as Iggy said. Stooges. Yeah. So I've got a question here for you. What happened to that Yamaha SG2000 that you used to play? And that's from a guy called Joe White. And I think, if I'm not wrong, it's a guy that writes for one of the English music magazines called Viva La Rock. But I'm guessing that's from Joe. But yeah, what happened to have you still got the SG2000?
I got two of them. I've still got them. The original one I had, the Sunburst one, is actually just in the next room right there. And the second one, the second one was actually a 2000S. The only difference being that it had coil taps on, so you could sort of it sort of dropped down to single coil pickups.
Okay.
Which was again not something I ever used because Stiff Little Fingers was built on a sort of wall of sound at that point rather than anything else. But yeah, I've still got them. We're going back to what I said right at the start when we were talking about sort of the locking the thing down. I had the world's worst problems trying to keep, particularly the second one, in tune. Not really sure why that would be. I tried to change machine heads, change all sorts of stuff.
Not the strings, is it?
No, it was definitely not the strings. No, it might have been the idiot hitting the strings, but it wasn't the strings. And so yeah, once I got the sort of locking system in, it was like I just sort of shifted across to those. And the fine people at ESP have been really sort of generous, and to the point that now I've managed to get. I've got main stage guitars and backup guitars that are all ESPs. Occasionally, I bring the second SG out on tour with me, but again, it's just as backup guitar. So if it ever makes an appearance, it's because I've gone through two guitars to get to it. So it's like I'm being particularly heavy-handed that night.
Yeah, and I've got a question here from Fingers John. If the March tour is off, which I guess it will be it be rearranged for later?
We still don't. Yeah, we still don't know what's happening with that. I'm guessing it's probably not going to happen either. But at the moment we're still. Like we said at the start, we're in the hands of the gods really when it comes to this. I mean, so we're waiting for.
Let's all be positive.
We're waiting for advice. We're waiting for advice from government. We're talking to our promoters, and I mean, at the end of the day, as soon as we know, we'll let people know.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, obviously, if it has to be moved, it'll be moved. But it's one of those things. It's like our audience are incredibly loyal, for which we're hugely grateful because
your tours
are career or job otherwise
packed, aren't they? So
yeah, and they are incredibly loyal, and we obviously don't want to be dicking anybody about.
No.
And you know, when you stop and think how much it costs to come to these things, I mean, we try to keep the ticket prices down as much as we can, but a lot of folks will come as a family. So, you know, if you're buying 4 tickets, you're tying up at least, you know, 100 quid, probably more and stuff. And, you know, a lot of folk have been furloughed, a lot of folk have lost their jobs. And, you know, to keep going back and saying, yeah, we're rearranging these shows and, you know, bear with us, keep your tickets and all that. Well, you know, a lot of people will be looking at it going, sorry, mate, I need that money to pay for groceries this week. So, you know, it's perfectly understandable. And again, just to reassure people, we are not going away. You know, it's like we're not about to stop because this is giving everybody a kick in the teeth. So, so you know, if you really need if you need the dosh, then you need the dosh. But you know, don't worry that this is your last chance to see us, because it's not. It certainly
okay. Well, that's great to know. And we'll obviously do what we can to promote it all when things are back up and running.
Appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that.
I'll say thank you very much, Jake, for your time. And
yeah, you're welcome. Oh, and in answer to your strings question, I use Rotosound. Of course I do.
Cool. Well, have a great rest of the day.
You too, mate.
Really nice
to finally talk to you.
Take care.
You too. Take care.
Bye.